morning, everybody. Welcome to this Question Pro webinar, How Communities Unlock Agile Research. If you don't know me, I'm Crystal Weiss. I'm the Director of Marketing here at Question Pro, and I am joined by the beautiful and new to Question Pro, Laura Baker. So excited you're here. And I'm based in Austin, Texas. Laura, where are you based out of?
I am in Tampa now.
Ooh,
previously Chicago, fun. So I like to claim ownership to both. Yep.
Amazing. If you get wherever y'all are, let us know in the comments. We love getting to know who's watching and who's viewing. I can only see who is here. I can see how many people are here. I can't see who is here. So let us know if you're, if you have any questions for Laura, let us know where you're at in the comments section. Is it sticky, hot, cold? What's the vibe of Tampa today?
It's always sticky and hot in August, and it's gray and rainy and no hurricanes right now. So listen, I'm happy about that. Should we address the elephant in the room though? Because I'm sure everybody's news, like phones blew up.
We should address the elephant in the room. If everybody doesn't know this, Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce are engaged. You heard it here first.
I feel like we need to get that out there because somebody's going to get a scream from a teenage daughter or a Swiftie in their house. I mean, it happened, you guys. It happened during a Question Pro webinar. I feel like you will always remember this webinar. Communities equals Taylor Swift engagement.
One of the girls just messaged from our employee. If you don't know that much about Question Pro, y'all, we cover a lot of things from market research to employee experience to customer experience. And Guille, our head of employee experience marketing, she was like, I'm going to send an email today. Taylor Swift is engaged. When are your employees going to get engaged in your experience or something? And I was like, yes.
We're going to do it. We had to get it out there.
Peter.
I'm a boy mom. I have all boys. So I'm going to be the only one in my house that actually cares about this. So listen, if anybody else on this webinar cares, just know that, I appreciate the solidarity here in this.
Shout out to Travis Kelce for knowing he wasn't going to get any better.
I'll give you that. Yeah. Anyway, I digress, but that's kind of like universally big news. And it will affect consumption of different products across the globe. So that actually is relevant because she does have an amazing effect on consumer behavior. So it is.
And if you want to measure that consumer behavior, you can.
That's exactly right.
So for anyone who doesn't know, Laura Baker was previously the CEO of Knowledge Hound, and she has come to join Question Pro to lead the way on our communities platform, which is probably the best product that is the best kept secret at Question Pro, and it shouldn't be a secret. Communities is really super powerful, and we're going to kind of dive into what owning your own, I would say, data and your own panel and your own experiences look like today. So Laura, give us a little bit of why. I'm sure that you have some friends watching who are like, what is Laura doing at Question Pro? So give us a rundown of your journey to here and why you are excited to be here.
Yeah, that's a fantastic lean in. Let's not take too much time on this, but been in the research and consumer insights industry for over 20 years. I know I look just so young, but no, that's not the case. And just love the space. I was leading Knowledge Hound before, a survey data visualization tool. We actually sold that to YouGov, and in the process of selling, I met Vivek, who owns Question Pro, and we have stayed in touch, and he wore me down and honestly has been talking to me about joining Question Pro for a while. ideate, whether it's do post-usage testing. I mean, the possibilities are quite frankly endless, depending on what it is that you're looking to do and what space you're in.
Right. So you're also saying like you could look for like everybody, I'm assuming everybody knows about samples or audience. So you could either go find a sample and put it in your community, or you could also import, let's say, your database of customers or, like prototypers or people like that and move them in to your community. Right. And I think that could be like, sometimes people think like, well, if I want to get this thing started, where do I even start? Is it going to be successful, or is it going to be just another one of those initiatives? Where do you think people should start when they're thinking about communities?
I mean, honestly, I think you think through who is it that you're targeting?
Okay.
Because you've got this, there's always a time and a place for your large surveys and your large panels, if you will. They're census based. You might need them on a recurring basis.
Hold on, Laura, where's your mic? It seems to be picking up your like hand movements.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Let's stop that. So is that a little better? Is that a little better?
That's great.
There's always going to be a time and a place for that. But if you are, if you know who it is you're trying to profile. So somebody, for instance, within Question Pro reposted the LinkedIn post I made about the webinar today and said, for instance, if you are looking to profile, I'm not going to get this quite right, but 40 something skateboarders who like flavored coffees, right?
Ooh.
Okay, let's be clear. That is a very niche audience. How many of those do you need? Now you can determine what your right sample set is for that, for you to feel comfortable making decisions on. Is that 100? Is that 200? Is that 1,000? What is it that you feel comfortable having, credibility with making a decision on? But you can go out and recruit a very specific audience for that, and then have them always on. And listen, we do that for you, or if you're an agency, your agency is doing that for you. And then the community is managed by the community manager to do that. And there's gamifications and ways that keeps that community running. But then you have this profiled audience that's directly related to who you're targeting that particular product to. In that particular instance, you've got a very specific narrative, for a profile that you're going after. I can't even think of a product right now. That's terrible that I just brought up that example, but
skateboards.
Right. I was trying to like, somebody that's going to a skateboard park and actually buying a coffee and lives in maybe.
That's fair. They probably have kids, so like maybe a kid's skateboard.
So to that point, though, you don't know where to start, because if you're looking at a general pop, you're never going to get to that, down to that detail. And so all you need is a community. Honestly, the best place to start is the community, because you don't need a really large sample of that. You need a specific group of pre-profiled people that fit the narrative of the persona you're going after, just like you would build out a marketing message for a specific persona. You're building out a community for that persona that you're going after.
I love that. And then this can take us like two directions. And I know we have two things we want to talk about with those personas. We want to talk about fraud, but we also want to talk about the lift of a community. So is it hard to find those people, right? We're saying that we can find them for you. Your agency can find them for you. And then we can also nurture them for you, which I think is where, over the years, people feel so much more confident in the DIY of like, I can do my own survey, but then maybe they get a sample they don't trust. By handing off communities to, let's say, a partner or Question Pro research services, we can kind of take that lift off of them, away from the insecurity of their data, but how do we say it's okay, we've got you, right? Because, sometimes people want to be able to do it themselves, even if it's more work.
Absolutely. So now, and honestly, Crystal, you might be able to know, and this is me not necessarily knowing exactly who's on the webinar right now. So we've probably got both actual in brands and agencies. So I'm
Mhm.
going to try to speak to both of that. So there are agencies out there who are going to manage communities on behalf of brands. And then they are going to work with companies like Question Pro, who are going to do the community management. So that's inherently built in what they do. So I'm gonna skip over that segment. And for any of you agencies that might be on there, just know that I understand that and can speak to that in a
We
separate
see
conversation.
you, we know you,
For,
we can talk to you later.
um, for the brands, typically the community management tends to, and I'm going to just call a spade here.
Yeah.
Typically, the community management tends to be a heavier lift than ever expected. And I would garner that if you talk to anyone that has managed a community before, they will typically indicate that they have underestimated the resources or the time commitment that they've needed to manage that community.
Okay.
How are we going to tackle that? Well, two ways. Sometimes companies will actually dedicate resources to that, and they will recognize this, and they will put in place those resources, and have tackled this in a way that they have learned, and give the adequate budget in order to be like, yeah, we get it, and we need to make sure that we nurture this community that yes, we have the tools, and yes, the platform does everything it should, but we still need human intervention in order to
Yeah.
ensure this repeat.
You still have to kind of do all the campaigns and the initiatives and the
Yeah, yeah,
you can't just set it up and forget about it. Communities really need nurtured and compared to one-off surveys, correct?
yeah. Just exactly. Just think of it like a marketing campaign or a marketing management campaign.
Hmm.
And so from our perspective, when that doesn't exist within a company, we absolutely have a managed services team that does that for you. So
I love that.
we take that. So we can, recruit, manage, engage, and then totally take that lift on an ongoing basis. So we've built that in to what we do. Um, I
Amazing.
will say, I will say though, you know, as we learn the power of agentic AI and continue to lean in there, the more that we can learn to automate some of this in the future, we of course hope to minimize the scope of what humans need to do. But right now we recognize that that lift needs to be addressed, because that is probably where I think the fail point would be. Everything else I think we've solved for, but that's where the community management piece, I think that's where I would say the watch out is for all of you on the call. Don't underestimate that piece, whether it's with Question Pro or anywhere else. That's you know that's the trick.
And then once you kind of have that trick dialed, I'm assuming that's where it takes you to kind of this agile research space where you can, if you have those community managers and you're really dedicating the time to keeping your community, I would say going, right, and engaged, how does that kind of take your speed to insights in a way that's, I would say, I mean, obviously faster, right? You're not having to find net new people over and over again. You're already incentivizing them to take surveys, so they already want to take the surveys. Is there maybe another secret sauce there that I'm missing? Those are I'm just remembering the things that Dan taught. It's those are the things I know about communities.
No, you actually just said it. It's I always say, it tends to be the simple things, right? It tends to be almost the most obvious. You're
Mhm.
de-risking your big decisions because you're always on. You can recontact. It's really hard to recontact the same consumer, right? In this case, you can contact. That compounds over time. So think
Right.
about the cost savings and the compounding value of that over time. You're iterating faster. You can co-create in that you can quickly get to that consumer or that patient or whatever space you're in, and you can test messaging, you can test features, you can you can send products to them, and you can have them taste, smell, test, get pre and post usage, or actual, if it's an actual product that you're consuming, how they consumed it. You can get all of that feedback and build or make decisions off of it, but also build longitudinal decisions over time with it.
Ooh.
Um,
You want to
it just
expand a little
reduces
bit by what you mean by longitudinal, I can't say that word,
Mhm.
decisions?
Yeah, longitudinal. Well, not only are you looking at it over time because you're recontacting these people over
Mhm.
time, so you're building this narrative over a period of weeks, months, years. Um, but you're also maybe iterating a product so you can fail fast or iterate it, start over a period of time. So it's not just a one and done thing. It's
Ah.
actually that continues over a continuum. Sorry. Um,
I love that. Do you also think that goes into, I've worked in market research almost 6 years in October at Question Pro. And I swear every year I have to do, thank you. I surviving it, doing it. But every year I have to do a surveys 101 session that's like, don't make surveys over 10 questions, because I will get surveys that will trick you into like 45 questions. And I'm like, I'm not taking a 20-minute survey. Like, this is
yeah,
ridiculous. So, assuming if you're using a community, you could create shorter surveys more often to get
yeah,
answers to, instead of being that guy or girl or lady or person who's like, oh my God, I'm sending a survey. You know how many, I'm gonna get them, and I'm gonna ask them every question. Consumers see it, guys. We're not dummies. Like,
that's right. Yeah, I mean, you like, I mean, not to call them an asset, but that it is an asset. It's an asset. It's your asset. It's a community
mhm.
as an asset. You own the asset. You're not like renting this. And so you can use it kind of any way you want. And I guess I should have touched on this from the start. It is a place that does have quant and qual. It's that sweet
Mhm.
spot of well, quantitative and qual coming together. So you can survey, you can poll, you can do some videography, you can really leverage it however you want. You can do a one question intercept, like, hey,
Ooh.
I have
Yeah.
a quick question for this. Oh my gosh, let's tie it right back to Taylor Swift. If it's something that, like, you are in the space that you do have
Wedding planning.
teen
Whatever
yeah, well,
colors
yeah,
Whatever
absolutely.
colors she plans for her wedding are going to be the next colors of the season. You guys have got to
I
survey
It's
about that.
true. That's actually, I mean, if I'm on the spot here, but it's so true. You could think of wedding planning, you can think of colors. I
Yeah.
mean, if you're in cosmetics or in makeup, when she changed from red to orange, the
Yep.
colors went off the shelf. So if you think of suppliers that are doing pigments, okay, suddenly they are going out of stock on whatever the pigment is in the orange. So that affects their stocks going into other things that needs that orange pigment. I'm just making that up, but you guys are probably following my line of thinking, in that the tangential effects to all these different categories is crazy, just by her saying she's going to get married. And so if you're in this space, you can say, all right, this is going to change different wedding planning. This is going to change venues. This is going to change color palettes. This is going to change the music. This is going to change consumption habits.
Yep.
This might actually cause people to change, who knows where she's going to get married, how she's going to get married, the dress she's going to wear. What if she doesn't wear a traditional white colored dress? Oh my gosh.
We're going
Where is
rogue
that going
here,
to
people.
like, and I know we're just talking this, but this is just one kind of crazy example that just happens to be timely today. But by being able to quickly tap into your community on something that just happened today, you can survey them today about
Mhm.
anything you want related to okay, what happens if she says, you know what? I don't like Advil, but I take Tylenol. And so before my wedding, okay, what does that mean? I just made that up. I'm so sorry
No,
if I have
but
somebody
it is like,
out.
but if you also have something in production right now that you're testing,
Right.
could you change
So
it
like
to match the moment?
how
Like,
do I quickly, yeah, how do I quickly survey these people or test these people or test a concept or, or test that, hey, actually, does this matter to me? Do I
mhm.
need to
And do
do
my
I need
consumers care about this? Will this, you
to
could even ask, will this impact their decision making moving forward very quickly? Do you think that takes, sometimes I give researchers a hard time. It's okay. I give CX and EX people a hard time about this too, about like not being whimsical enough. Like we think very much about like the structure, the science of it. And it's like, okay, but sometimes you just gotta be like, is a hot dog a taco? Like, is there, are you like, sometimes you just have to think like forward thinking. Do you think we get stuck a little bit in our like business
Yeah,
aspects of it? Or yeah, like, and so
I
I would
do.
say, is a community a great place to test that? Like one survey is not gonna like,
No, ultimately, we're all just trying to reduce our costs over time. We're all trying to make sure that we're meeting an unmet consumer need or continuing to meet a known consumer need that we have identified. And that's just what this is trying to do.
yeah.
It's not a new idea. I just really think it's an underutilized idea, and I think that people don't necessarily recognize that it doesn't even need to be fully baked. It needs to kind of, to my point, it can be a 20-person community. Sometimes you got
Mhm.
to start somewhere. It can be with one particular product or one particular concept. You don't need to do it throughout your entire organization. You can
Ah,
start somewhere. You can then bleed it into your entire organization if it does become adopted. But and become successful. But this doesn't this doesn't need to be intimidating.
right.
And it doesn't need to feel disruptive. This is truly complementary. It's just kind of like, oh, I'll use a marketing angle. So, I use Facebook and Instagram. Should I also do Twitter? I
Mhm.
do I do surveys and I do panel and I do some quals, some ethnographies. Should I also do a community? Yes. The answer is yes.
I love that. And it kind of adding it as your like another, I would say like spoke on your wheel. Like this is
Of
your
course.
like another tool in your assets of how to grow your audience, like that you have an online member portal. It's not just like rogue people. We can customize a portal for you where people feel really engaged. There's also an app, I think, because we are so mobile friendly, right? Like
Of course.
we have rewards that we can plug into it. So you're not just like giving them nothing. I still think that
That's right.
don't join the American Airlines community, guys. I mean, you can, but like, it's just, they don't give you enough rope. The surveys are so long.
If they're listening, this is an opportunity for American Airlines to talk with yourself.
Guys, 50 miles is not worth 30 minutes of my time.
Well, that's actually, but you bring up a great point. So you also need to learn while you're running a community in terms of
Yeah.
what works. When you run a community, there's gamification, there's awards, there are incentives, and trying to figure out how to keep your community going and keep them engaged. That's half the battle. And of course, we work with you on doing that or manage it for you. But there's
Yeah.
different ways that you do that, and you evolve that over time. And we'll talk to you if you're interested on how we do that. But that's important. That's a very, very important point, because if you don't get that right, then you're going to lose your most engaged consumers, and that's the last thing you want to do. So you do want to get it
Or you
right.
are gonna, I think what I find is I did have to lie to get into that community though, because I always am rejected because I work in market research.
Well,
And so I was
okay.
like,
Well, I actually was thinking, how in the world did you even get on a community? Yeah.
I know I was bad. I can't get into the HEB one. They won't let me. And
Yeah, well,
but it is also, making sure that you keep your high valued, right? Like you don't want to just always engage the same people. How do you diversify your rewards and your systems, because you want to be able to get across all of those. We do have a really technical question that I'm going to pop up here from KH about how to loading them in, cost of the platform. And we'll reach out to you. I know you're registered, but we can reach out and chat with you more about the details. But explain a little bit more about how you take your customers and put them into a community, not just finding a panel of people.
So I really am gonna dodge the pricing question, not because
we can talk about that.
To dodge, but it is. What I will say to that is, we're exceptionally cost competitive, and what I didn't say before is one of our true advantages is because we own our survey platform, we are end to end here at Question Pro, and I do think that that is a distinct advantage for us, and that is one of the reasons that I did join, which is lovely because we have been able to build our community on top of a very enterprise grade, robust survey platform, and we own our audience too. So we can kind of do this full stack, which allows us to not only minimize kind of all those touch points and all the things that can come up when you have multiple providers kind of in that way, but it minimizes the risk around the way. In terms of loading, we'll take, we're going to work with you to bring that on. We've taken on communities from other providers or built them with you and managed and recruited ourselves. So I think it's a matter of just following up specifically with that to very quickly figure out the best way to do it.
Because it's very not basic, but you have an email list. You can email that list to say hey, would you like to join our community? Those people click the button and sign up for the community. And because just like Question Pro, we have our own customer list. Question Pro, we are playing with the idea of having our own community because Laura and I were talking about we need to be able to demo this so well. But that's
But right? No, absolutely.
So you would send an email to your customers with a link to join the community. They would fill out their information and then bing, bam, boom. There they are.
Yeah, it's as simple as that. But I'm guessing that you're probably asking for a little bit more detail on that. And maybe coming from another provider. And I'd be happy to just take that offline really quickly after this call. Yeah.
Amazing. If you guys have any other questions, please make sure you put them in the chat. Laura and I have a couple more things we want to talk about because we know that, communities is, I would say, right, you have people who are doing it well. You have people who maybe started doing it and abandoned it. And then you maybe have people who are curious about what it is. And so how do we kind of talk about those, I would say, the pros and cons, right? I know how to do surveys very easily. I can field a survey through my panel. What's kind of the pros and the cons, just a real quick deep dive into that versus just running typical surveys?
Clearly we did not fully go back and forth and do a Q&A before that because I'm actually going to ask Crystal for clarification. So if I'm thinking I might have misunderstood actually your question, Crystal. If I think panels,
which one is better, communities or regular surveys?
Okay, panels or surveys just a broad reach, and I think communities have deep iteration. I think there's a place for both of them.
Yeah.
Right. So one is just what I just said. Communities is kind of that deeper. It's more breadth.
Mm-hmm.
More kind of depth. So it builds on. Is that fair?
I was trying to get you to be communities is the best.
I actually, there's a place for both, candidly, right? Because there are people out there that are going to say surveys are going to die in the future. And I've been hearing that for a really long time. And it's kind of like people saying PowerPoint's going to die. I've been hearing that for 25 years too,
Oh my
except
gosh.
for so for 5 years. And maybe, never say never. But
It's like everybody thought email
um,
was going to die when we got Slack, and it didn't.
right. And cash was going to go. When I did my MBA, it was cash was going to go away. And I just think like, it's like never say never, be careful when you use the term always. It's just all of those things. So I do think that there's a place. It's just like your hub, or what'd you say, the spoke in the wheel.
Yeah.
I do think it's for that. It's for the breadth. It's for the iteration. It's for the speed. Because again, you are not getting a representative of a census. You
Yeah.
are not getting a million consumers. That is not the intent of it. But you are getting a group of potentially highly engaged consumers with your particular brand.
Right.
I think back to when Seventh Generation first came out, and this is, gosh, probably 2 decades ago,
For,
and
like, laundry detergent?
for their laundry detergent, and
Okay.
they were going up against P&G with their diapers, and
Mhm.
they were really testing like their efficacy and everything else, and they were really just using their own consumer group. Method was doing it with it was really just their own advocates that were
Yeah.
their own own advocates that were their first adopters of their products. I mean, that is how they started and how they really built their products. They didn't have any marketing budget to do anything else. So they were kind of the first type of adopters of like brand advocacy communities back in the day.
I
And,
love that.
and they were not at all, survey based or panel based or,
Yeah.
anything else. And so that's how I would think of it. Now, over time, of course, you want to be able to compare and contrast and have set sample sets and be able to, um, be able to tell a story against both. But
Mhm.
you need to make a quick decision tomorrow, and you need to survey those consumers today in order to get that data. I can't think of a better way to do it.
I love that. That really talks about, people are, if I have to sit through another speed to insight session at a conference, I'd be like, can we just make it a community session and we'll all be better for it. But that also kind of leads into what I would say is like, I was going to try and keep this to a tight 45. So we've got a couple more things to talk about, which are like fraud, right? It's the elephant in every room right now. We're even doing a panel on it at X Day. Like, how are we between fraud, synthetic data, AI shenanigans? Like, how does communities help combat all of that?
So inherently, it's a closed membership, right?
Mhm.
So inherently, you're mitigating fraud just because of what it is, which is something that I love. It's like you're tackling it without trying to tackle it because you're keeping the bots and the bad actors at bay. I mean, the fact that we have to deal with bot farms in our space is like crazy to me, but we do.
Yeah.
It's just insane to me, but they exist. And so, it's one of those things that by virtue of what a community is, if you're running it right, managing it right, and screening for the right members, then you're mitigating fraud in and of itself. Now, I will
It's
say
like
on
it's
top,
like kind of like an authentic fraud buster,
that's exactly
right?
right. It's just a high value asset that you've
Mhm.
kind of, and the funny thing is, the better engaged, the more high engaged they are. When you've got one that you really love and it's just really running well, you have minimal fraud because you've got that. If you don't have the American Airlines situation, I want to give this feedback. I love the rewards I'm getting, and I'm happy to give the bad and the good feedback. Those typically aren't your fraudulent respondents, right? You're actually
Right.
getting true, honest feedback, and that's what you want. Um, Secondary to that, I would say from a uniquely to Question Pro, since this is a Question Pro webinar,
That's true.
I would say that a secondary or adjacent advantage is we are tackling it within all of our products. Of course we
Mhm.
are. You know, every provider out there is. I mean, we all are. We're working on it together and we're working on it independently. And so because we're working on it within our audience, within our survey, within our community, within DigSite, our qual product, you also have um, the benefit of us of all the areas that we're putting money
Yeah.
against fighting fraud or finding ways to protect against fraud, both now and in the future.
Mhm.
And so you kind of get that protection both from the inherent protection of communities, but also the investments we're making across our portfolio of products. And that's
Yeah.
just kind of like a natural buffer that you get on both sides,
And
which
Laura's
is
not making that up. We're talking it's like literally talked about all the time. Like every feature we release with our surveys, with our product lines,
oh, thank
and
you.
even with our audience team and our sample team. Somebody asked if we integrate with to manage samples. We have our own sample team that is really working to make sure those are like the barriers are put in place. Like talking to Tim, it's like moderately depressing and slightly hopeful all at the same time.
Yeah, I'll give a huge shout out to Tim who runs our audience. His his perspective and his knowledge about fraud from our with our
Mhm.
audience is just phenomenal, and he is a huge asset on that, which is just, you know, I fortunately do not have to investigate the bot farms that he's doing, but I'm learning from him, and we benefit from him
Yeah.
within the rest of our products. And so should you have questions on that, feel free to, you know, he's active too on LinkedIn,
Nope.
and he's a part of our leadership team here. And to Crystal's point on our, you know, little plug for X Day, we have X Day coming up in October. We do have a fraud panel going on. So, you know, that kind of goes back to the point on like why Question Pro. You know, it's just so comprehensive in what we're
Mhm.
doing. We're talking communities today, but community is just a piece of the puzzle,
Yeah.
and we're fortunate to be playing in a lot of the pieces of the puzzle.
And
And
I would say
we
to
do,
those watching, if you are running a community, great, we love it. We're happy to support you. However, if you feel overwhelmed by running communities, talk to Laura. She's not only a pro at this, but like also we have a team that can help you, right? I think that's sometimes in the marketplace, it's like, this is like, it's like back to almost like some marketing. Like I always feel like everybody's doing A/B testing and then we are only doing a little A/B testing. Like you might be surprised who's doing communities and who's not doing communities. And it just takes some time to jump in and get to know people like Laura who may be operating in those spaces that you don't know about. And really kind of dive in, ask questions. You can always reach out to us on LinkedIn or through our emails. Like we have a ton of these also past webinars you can watch. Like don't feel too nervous because there are people who are willing to help you.
yeah, this is, to me, this is all about just starting the conversation.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, I'd hope that it would be with Question Pro, but just raising awareness for communities in general is kind of my goal here.
Right. Like hello, do you have a community?
Mhm,
Anyone?
mhm.
And so, we really hope that y'all can kind of dive into that. I think as a reminder, communities help you have fast insights. They help you, you know, deter fraud, and they
Mhm.
can make, I think, get you closer to your consumers, which at the end of the day also help get you a seat at that revenue table, which we're also talking about at X Day. Oh man, I'm a genius.
Always. Yeah, always. You know, I say, I don't care where you're at. I used to say when I led sales teams, you know, always be learning. You're always be
Hmm.
learning about your customers. You're always learning about new tools. In this case, you know, continuous learning. You're always learning about your consumers.
Yeah.
And this is a continuous learning environment, and that's truly what this is. You're always on customers, and you're always learning. And so I talk about this as a continuous learning environment as well.
I
Instead of always
love
closing, it's always be learning for the you Glengarry, Glen.
Okay, if you haven't, what is your favorite like community story that you've heard over the years? What was the coolest product that came out of a communities that you know of? You don't have to name names, but you could be a little vague.
Oh man, you kind of put me on the spot. I loved.
Well,
I
welcome
spoke
to
to a couple.
webinars at Question Pro. They are just always me putting people
I,
on the spot.
I spoke to a couple of them, but there was one I just recently heard that was we actually a very, very expensive product to ship, but a, a customer is shipping some very heavy and expensive products to their community of customers, because to do it at a large scale would be very difficult. But shipping them to their customers, having them test, gauging, again, concept testing, product testing, gauging the product, and getting feedback, and then continuing to test. So the more engagement that they're getting from that customer, the more products they're getting. So the part of the incentive is they're getting a high cost product, but the ROI for the client is phenomenal, because it's really difficult to get usage information from this product because of the length and the duration of like how this operates. And so I loved that use case, because it actually is a bit of a high cost, but again, the ROI is significant.
And if you're the consumer, you want those high ticket items, like, and then you're just testing,
absolutely.
right? And the more
It's
you're
relevant.
engaged, the more
Yeah.
you know you're going to get those high ticket items. That's very cool.
And it's a commodity business, so it's not a business that you would have an influencer in or anything like that. So yeah, it was a good one.
Really fun.
Yeah.
Oh, that's another, I mean, that is another thing, is like, how do you manage in the world of influencers, like how you're getting authentic feedback? That's like an entire another webinar.
Yeah. I know I threw that one in last minute. Sorry, but yeah, that's
amazing. Well, Laura, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you also for joining Question Pro. You've probably hit your first 30 days now, maybe 60. So we're so glad you're here. If you have any questions or comments for Laura or I, follow us on LinkedIn. And you can, thank you to everyone who joined this webinar in our little meeting room we have, along with anyone watching across YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn. We are so glad you're here. And I will give one last shout out for X Day, October 9th in Austin, Texas. We will be talking about fraud. We'll be talking about how researchers can get a seat at the table, like next to the revenue, like how do you talk to your CFOs and make sure that, you know, you're really getting those seats at the table. We're also diving into angst in the workplace and psychological safety in the workplace. And we're having a live CX customer experience debate on AI customer service and like people versus AI. I'm moderating the debate as if it was like a high school debate. I even got tiny trophies for the winner. So it's going to be such a good time. Laura's going to be there IRL.
Outlined on your, like, if you go anywhere for X Day, I think you can see all the speakers that we have, right?
So, yeah. Everybody's coming. So it's going to be such a good time. We really appreciate y'all joining us, and make sure to follow Laura and I on LinkedIn. Bye, guys.